The sequence of Shakespearean sonnets takes a turn with number 127. This is where we start to get a shift in who it's addressed to, in the relationship of the speaker to the addressee, and it is the, critics will note, the introduction of what is called the Dark Lady. And pretty much everything in the back half of this, or much less than half, is generally termed the Dark Lady sonnets, because the young, beautiful young man who's so concerned about his physical beauty fades away, and now these poems tend to deal much more with a woman who is sexually experienced, perhaps a little older, notably of a darker morality and a darker physical presence. And that's significant for a number of ways, but let's take a look at this. In the old age, black was not counted fair, or if it were, it bore not beauty's name. But now is black beauty's successive heir, and beauty slandered with a bastard shame. For since each hand hath put on nature's power, fairing the foul with art's false borrowed face, sweet beauty hath no name, no holy bower, but is profaned, if not lives in disgrace. Therefore my mistress's eyes are raven black, her eyes so suited, and they mourners seem at such who, not born fair, no beauty lack, slandering creation with a false esteem. Yet so they mourn, becoming of their woe, that every tongue says beauty should look so. Now, on the surface, and I use that term advisedly, on the surface, this is kind of about race. In the old age, black was not counted fair. Nobody thought black skin was fair not too long ago. Black was not the ideal beauty. Curious. Or if it were, it bore not beauty's name. So that's an immediate qualification of that makes it seem more subjective, more problematic. But now is black beauty's successive heir, and beauty slandered with a bastard shame. Now, that could be, and I think it's an arguable point that it is, on the surface, about skin tone. The speaker here is perhaps defending he has a lover who is dark-skinned in some form or another, and is making an argument that, well, society has this weird definition of what beauty is. But I don't think this lives up to that. Or I don't think that that definition lives up to the truth. For since each hand hath put on nature's power, fairing the foul with art's false borrowed face, each hand hath put on nature's power, that's makeup. The ability to alter one's look. Sometimes making it a little lighter, sometimes making it a little darker, but changing nature through human agency. With art's false borrowed face, the art of putting on makeup, you know, little concealer, hide some of the problem areas, highlight your good selling points. What's that? I didn't catch it. You don't know. It's a mystery. I'm not accusing anybody of using makeup or anything like that. And, you know, the multi-billion-dollar cosmetics and cosmetic surgery industry is, of course, all just a sham because nobody uses it. Everybody looks naturally good the minute they roll out of bed. This is the position I'll stick with in public, and who cares about other than that? But this is torturing that because look at the way this poem is setting up. He's saying that there is a social, societally mandated standard of what beauty is. And I think we all know what that looks like. It's magazine covers, or perhaps today, TikTok videos. There's a standard for what beauty is. And if you don't meet that, damn, you better work on yourself. It is working on that level. It is a critique of beauty standards. But think also on a poetic level. This is a poem. The sonnet has a long tradition of being a love poem, an expression of love. And it is borrowed essentially into English during the Renaissance. Generally a guy named Sir Thomas Wyatt, and I think this other guy, Surrey, borrowed Italian modes. And the big dog of the Italian sonnet is Petrarch. Petrarch's ideal love had blonde hair. And he spoke of her as fair. And to this day, and I'm not saying he coined it, but to this day, the word fair generally means, aside from all conceptions of what is justice or something like that, but fair means beautiful, and fair also means light-toned. So that sense of the fair was enshrined in the poetic pantheon as this is what poetic beauty looks like. But the poem is coming along and saying, yeah, but what about darker? The darker shades have some merit too. Let's not privilege just the blonde hair, blue-eyed Aryan type. Let's open that up to some other interpretations. So this poem is about skin tone, yes, but it is also about poetry. Let's not be slaves to our cultural inheritance, the tradition of thinking that only fair skin is beautiful. So it's about skin tone, the physical, social meaning of that, but also poetry and the way we understand all art. Layer on top of that human nature itself. In the old age, black was not counted fair, or if it were, it bore not beauty's name. Well, if you take that metaphorically, symbolically, darkness doesn't have to be physical. Darkness could be, let's say, a mood, a vibe in today's vernacular. Does being happy and peppy and upbeat, is that always beautiful? Or does somebody with a darker side, who thinks perhaps a little bit more internally, maybe dwells on some of the more troubling aspects of humanity, does that have any claim to beauty as well? So you can see the poem turning these elements around. I would be remiss if I didn't also suggest that the dark side in this, the Dark Lady sonnet series, doesn't suggest also a certain promiscuity, a certain sexual deviance, perhaps. Is darkness just a sign of sexuality, sexual sordidness? Not necessarily something kinky and illicit, but it's not sweetness and light either. So perhaps falling under the spell of this dark lady, whether or not her skin is darker hued than the conventional English lass wandering around London. But maybe through her, he experiences something a little bit more hidden, a little bit more naughty. And being an expression of human animal sexuality, is that to be shunned, or should it be incorporated within our definition of what is human? The poem is working on all these levels simultaneously. It's a very tight construction for bouncing ideas up against one another. 14 lines. I heard one critic once call it, the sonnet is a panic room for human emotions, because it is so contained in that rigid rhyme scheme and structure, but inside it is all of this turbulent emotionalism bumping up against one another, crashing into one another, finding new meaning in just the concatenation of ideas.